This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 448 of the Stable Scoop Show. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible.
Our sponsors this week are the Fairfield Inn, North Lexington, Kentucky, HorseLovers.com, and Road to the Horse. Today on the show, we have Nick from the Make It Snappy Show with the productivity tip of the week, and we're talking about delegation. Delegating things. And then we have, called away from Australia, we have Lyndall Pinchin, and she is of Canine Vitality. We're going to be talking a little bit about dogs today. All of us horse people, we have dogs. Some of us more dogs than horses. So we're going to chat about that and health and hopefully a lot of other things. And then I just want to talk to you a little bit about Road to the Horse as well. All coming up on today's show.
Welcome to the Stable Scoop, with weekly shows delivered right to you. With Helena and Glenn the Geek, live from the stable, it's every week. They bring you the news through hail or high water, while using their tails as their own fly swatters. So sit on down and laugh till you poop, cause it's time again for Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop.
This is Glenn the Geek.
And this is Helena B. And you're listening to the Stable Scoop Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network.
Well, howdy, Helena.
Howdy, Glenn. We have a big show today.
Yes, we are not wasting any time, are we? We are going to dive in the deep end of the pool.
Well, it's a productivity episode, so we're going to be super efficient and productive.
Which we don't do very well. So we actually have, before the episode started, we were like, we have to be productive. We have to. So let's do that. Right after this word from Horse. Look, this is going to be the fastest start to a show we have done in 9 years.
On your mark, get set, go.
It's time for our productivity tip of the month with Nick Snap, host of the Make It Snappy Productivity Show.
Our first segment of the week is one of my favorites. We have Nick Snap from the Make It Snappy Show, and he's going to talk productivity with us this week. Hi, Nick. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Helena. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad I'm one of your favorites.
You really are.
She says that to everybody, Nick.
I do not. No, because Nick has actual tips that I can take and incorporate into my life, and they make my life better. And I think that's the whole point.
Yeah, that's right. We're here to help Helena today, Nick. That's what it's all about.
Hey, I'll do what I can.
What are we talking about today?
Today, I wanted to talk to you about effective delegation.
As in giving the job to somebody else to do?
Yes, all that stuff that you don't like to do. I mean, not all the stuff, but the stuff within reason that you don't like to do. How to do that effectively. Because I've learned recently, especially recently, that you just can't throw more bodies at something and expect it to work. You've actually got to go through a little bit of a process on how to delegate. And it's not as hard as you might think. So.
Well, we like to complain about it a lot.
Weren't we just having this conversation yesterday, Helena?
Yeah.
This exact conversation.
It is. So do you want to hear our problem with delegating, or do you want to tell us how we should delegate first?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a little workshop.
So for those of us who wear a lot of hats, we're freelancers, or we run the show and we have to do a lot of different things. It's really hard to hand off a task to somebody else when, first of all, the learning curve is steep. So you have to devote a certain amount of time to teaching that person the task and making sure they do it to your level of standards. And the other thing is, a lot of times you have to babysit that person. Mm-hmm. And I know Glenn and I say this all the time. If you want it done right, you just have to do it yourself. And it's really hard to let go of those two attitudes. Oh my God, I don't have the time to teach this person how to do what I want to do. Right. And I don't have the time or the patience to micromanage them once I've delegated. It's hard to let go.
Okay, so and then there's the control freak aspect, it sounds like.
Thanks a lot, Nick.
Which is fine.
I'm glad you said it and I didn't. I'm glad.
Oh my god!
Although I have
Under
the same
bus,
problem. I can't throw
Anybody
Helena
wanna
under
join me?
this bus.
I'll be making snacks. Under the big yellow bus.
Helena and I are both under the bus, so I'm the same as her. We had the exact same problem. We discussed this yesterday. It's funny you bring this up.
Oh, well, cool.
How do we do it? How do we fight those attitudes and actually start delegating with success?
Well, I think one of the key things that people miss is that you assume that the person you're delegating it to has a general sense or knows close to what we know about the subject. So when we talk about things, we don't break it down as if it's your grandmother or your 12-year-old, you know? So when I delegate something, one of the coolest hacks that I've learned to discover is I use my screen, especially if it's something on the computer. So let's just start with the computer aspect. If it's something you do on the computer, like scheduling, booking, anything like that, using a platform like Zoom or another screen capture software where you walk them through in your own words, you actually do it in front of them, you capture that video. And then as an additional bonus on that, after whatever it is I'm trying to do, like I did it just now, and this is really, really fresh in my mind because I'm going through a product launch and there's all this admin stuff that, I didn't realize I had to do. So in my day-to-day tasks, there's a lot of repetitive things, and developing my processes, my procedures for getting those things they're done and they're autopilot. But when I'm doing new stuff, I'm realizing there's a lot of stuff that I can do. So I take that extra few minutes because I have a virtual assistant, and I just did this recently where I was like, okay, I need to schedule all these different meetings that I don't know when everybody's available, what their times are. So I went into Doodle, which is another good hack. If you have a group that you need to get together, and you put in your windows of time available for whatever that particular meeting is, and then you have them go in there and they select what times they're available. I didn't want to do all that because I had to set up like 5 or 6 of these different meetings. So I trained my VA on how to use Doodle, how to go into my Doodle account and how to use that. And it took me about 10 minutes to record a little video, and he has all the information that he needs. Now, as a backup to that, one thing you can do to the person that you're delegating to is you can ask them after they've watched the video to write out the process for you to review. That way you get a good understanding as to whether they understand all the little steps. And then you see it out in front of you too. So it's right there. It's if like your process is broken, then you could actually see it written out because you're like, this is how somebody else is interpreting it. So that's been an easy little hack for me to teach little admin things to my virtual assistant.
And it's much better than just putting a process down on paper or in black and white and handing it off to somebody and say, follow these steps. Because when you have, first of all, you have the conversation in person and then you ask them to write it down for you or their interpretation of it. We all know that we learn when we write. When you commit something to memory, you're learning it for a second time. So it really helps the person who's assisting you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so it doesn't just need to be like over the internet doing a screen capture and then having them write it down and send it back to you. You can do that face to face with whatever it is, asking them to go ahead and repeat that. Not even repeat that back to like, you write it down. Okay, now that I've told you what to do, what is your process going to be? And then the other thing that people mess up with a lot on delegation, this goes for accountability too, because accountability is definitely my thing, is that you don't set those clear deadlines, those target dates of when you need things done. So you just kind of leave it open, and their interpretation might be that you need to get it done in a few days, and you might need them to get it done by the end of the day or in a few hours or whatever. So being very clear about when they need to have what specific deliverable there for you, like outlining exactly what it is they need to do by when, that's a key component that'll save so much stress and so much back and forth.
I like this a lot.
One of the things we talked about yesterday was in our world, the horse world, like if I'm finding somebody to help out with the Horse Radio Network, I can't get somebody from the Philippines to assist with that because we truly need people that know about horse stuff. Mm-hmm. It can't be somebody that doesn't know about horse stuff. It won't work. So that complicates it a little bit. In our case. Now, it's not saying there aren't horse people out there, but I know all these people are going the VA route and they're all offshore, but that's something that we don't necessarily have the luxury to do because of the nature of what we do.
Yeah, well, VA doesn't necessarily mean offshore. It could be
right. I understand.
So that's not there.
That's the ones I always see. Everybody posting. I got this great VA, and they're the Philippines.
Those are the affordable ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah,
Those
the $5 ones.
And
yeah, exactly.
We're all trying to improve our profit margins here, and so And that's the other thing. There are times when you say, I can't afford, whether it's in time or in money, to delegate this task to somebody else. But there comes a point, and I'm very interested to know what you think about this, Nick. There comes a point where it costs you more to not get it done than it is to pay somebody else to do it. So even just outsourcing, for example, post-production podcast editing, I'm starting to get to a point where I have to think maybe it's going to be less expensive for me to pay someone to do it than to suck up the time to do it myself.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's an opportunity cost. And knowing what the value of your personal time is huge. So if you know you have an opportunity to make $250 an hour or whatever it might be, and you can pay somebody $7 or $11 or $30, then, and you're confident that if you were to spend that time doing those value add, those return on invested type of activities, then by all means, it's a no-brainer.
Okay, Nick, what are you doing later? We have a lot of stuff. Confident. We have a lot of stuff to send over. What are you doing later?
What am I personally doing? I'll probably delegate. If you send them all my stuff, I'll figure out a way to delegate it to you. How about that?
Well, this is all good, and this is so timely, and it's something that I am dealing with right now, and it is. There is twofold to this decision every time. One is money, and one is time. That comes up every time, and it's and the unknown with this one. It's what Helene and I talked about yesterday. The unknown is if I spend the money. Forget time. If I spend the money, I know that I can make it up and probably make more, but that's the unknown, right?
Right.
So you know what you're spending now, and I know I'm going to spend more, but I can make more because I can have more time in my case to sell ads and do that side of the business. But you're not guaranteed that you're actually going to be successful at that, and that's where the fear comes in.
That's right. Yeah, that's why you need a buffer, a cushion, to test that theory, and have enough in there to take the hit if you need to take the hit.
Well, that's good because Helena volunteered to do it for free for about 2 months. So
I did. I believe that was a barter offer, mister. You're going to get it. You're going to get it.
Nick, where can people find you?
They can go to nick@makeitsnappyshow.com or just go to makeitsnappyshow.com/podcast to listen to my show. And I'd love to hear the feedback.
All right. Very good. We appreciate it, Nick. Thank you so much. I know you've helped me a lot, both my email and especially the email. I talked to you about that at PodFest. It just, I can't tell you how much you've helped me. So
that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate that. And it's free advice, people. We're not charging you a dime.
And it's really good advice. This isn't like pie in the sky. This is everyday, practical, easy to digest advice.
Very
That's
good.
What I try to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
All right.
Bye, Nick.
Talk to you later. Bye.
We all get in a rut when it comes to shopping for horse supplies online. If you have not tried horselovers.com yet, then you are missing out on one of the world's largest online tack shops and all the best brands like Noble Outfitters, Ariat, Turn 2, Tough One, Professional's Choice, Weaver, and many, many more. Visit horselovers.com every day to see their daily deals and flash sales. Horselovers.com has everything for the Western and trail rider. So get on over to horselovers.com today and save. Fairfield Inn & Suites North by Marriott Lexington is the ideal hotel for you as they are the closest hotel to the Kentucky Horse Park. They have the most spacious guest rooms and suites in the area, and they're only 4 miles from downtown Lexington. Fairfield Inn & Suites North offers complimentary breakfast, free Wi-Fi throughout the hotel, free parking, a business center, an indoor swimming pool and jacuzzi, an outdoor patio with grill, laundry facilities, and much more. You get hungry, Cracker Barrel is located right next door, and there are 4 other dining options available within walking distance for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Of course, Lexington is known for the Kentucky Horse Park, University of Kentucky, Keeneland, and the historical Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Enjoy a terrific hotel experience while you're touring Lexington. There's no denying that the Lexington North Fairfield Inn & Suites is the best value in town and will meet all your hospitality needs. Just Google Fairfield Inn North Lexington and make your reservations today. Well, we're going to switch gears a little bit here, Helena, on the show today, and we're going to talk about canines. You know, we all have dogs that have horses, and many of us multiple dogs that have horses, and it's something I don't think we've talked about enough on the show over the years. But we're also, I mean, what we're going to talk about today really applies to any animal and to humans too. We're speaking with Lyndall Pynchon, and she is of Canine Vitality out of Australia. Hi, Lyndall.
Hi there, Glenn. How are you? Hi, Helena.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm going to throw you on. I'm not going to throw you under the bus. I'm going to give you credit for getting up so darn early. It's like 4:30 her time in the morning to get up to talk to us. So we really appreciate that.
That's my pleasure. As I said, you'll have to just listen to my morning voice.
That's all right. As long as you got some coffee, we're good. Now,
yeah.
Tell us what you do exactly.
Well, Glenn, I'm in Australia. It's called an animal naturopath. So essentially, my background is as a naturopath for people. So I did that for about 25 years. But in the last 7 or 8 years, I retrained about 10 years ago to become an animal naturopath. So essentially, what that means is that I work predominantly with dogs holistically. So that means I work one-on-one with clients to help their dogs overcome chronic health problems or general health issues, things that generally are not being treated effectively through conventional veterinary channels. And so I'm using a lot of, I focus my work around raw feeding, herbal medicine, nutritional supplements, homeopathics, flower essences, all these sorts of wonderful natural medicines that can really help rebalance the dog's body to help overcome these chronic issues that, as I said, they're not responding to conventional treatment. So it's wonderful work. I get to work with dogs every day, so who wouldn't want to do that?
That's right.
And it's a lot of fun. I like doing it. It's great work.
One of the hosts here on the Horse Radio Network is Dr. Wendy Ying, and she's a veterinarian and a traditional Chinese medicine doctor. She actually has her master's degree in that. So, you know, we get a chance every once in a while to talk about herbs and to talk about acupuncture and all of the non-traditional solutions to problems. And you know what? I'm not too sure before I got to know Wendy that I was totally a believer, but I'll tell you two things that happened with me. Is one, I got to know Wendy and got to see it work when she was working with animals. And the second thing is having chronic Lyme disease, diet and herbs and the things I use to address that are all not medically related. So, I'm totally a believer now that especially diet. I mean, diet's a huge one.
Diet is a huge one. I mean, even, my husband with having multiple sclerosis, the biggest change in his disease progression has been what he puts in his mouth, what he eats. And, it's the same thing with horses. One of the things that I get compliments all the time about is how healthy my horses are, even my super senior horse. And it all comes down, even their feet, their coat, their eyes, their feet, their immune system. It all comes down to what I put in their bodies. And, and it's nothing medical. It's not pharmaceutical. It's the certain kinds of grasses, and basically it's herbs and flowers and some sunshine.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's exactly the same with dogs as well. I mean, I think the problem I see, and you may have the same issue over in the States, is that most of the time people are basing their feeding regimes around commercial foods, and of course we know that dogs are not built to eat these sorts of foods. They're not. If we look to Mother Nature, we see that dogs are anatomically designed to eat a diet of meat and bone. That's how they're built. They're not built like humans. So when we start to put these commercial foods into their bodies, which are full of grains and preservatives and all sorts of things that dogs would never intend, they're never designed to eat. This is where we start to see the issues. We start to see initially it'll start off as little niggly things, like might be the coat starts to become a bit dull, or they might get a minor rash, or they may get a little bit of diarrhea or something like that. And then this develops over time into these very, very significant chronic issues that we're seeing, and they're very similar to the things that we face as humans. So nutrition is absolutely paramount. That's the very first place that I always start with all my clients, is to try and get them on a natural diet. And this alone can often just eliminate many of the problems. Obviously, usually you have to do other things, but if you can get the diet going right, you're going to see some significant improvements in your whatever animal you've got, whether it's a dog, a cat, a horse, a giraffe. It doesn't matter what animal you've got, it will improve on the right diet. So it's very important for sure.
The hard part about that is okay, I'm going to play the person sitting here listening to this now at home who really hates to even cook for themselves and the family, and who's busy and doesn't have time and going to see the horse and all of that stuff. And now you either have to cook for your dog or you have to buy one of the problems with the food that's available that is good for them is it's hugely expensive. And so there's two huge negatives. How do you overcome those negatives when you're talking to people?
Yeah, you're right, Glenn. I think the first thing is that we're all time poor. I'm time poor. Everyone's time poor. But I think the thing to remember, firstly, from that perspective, is that once you get into a routine with raw feeding, and it's not rocket science. There's a few simple guidelines to follow. Once you get that under your belt, it actually is pretty. It's pretty simple, pretty fast. So if we break that down really quickly for a dog, that's basically, and I'm basing this on what I would feed my own dogs, is giving them a bone in the morning. So that's something that you can just essentially pull out of the freezer, defrost, and give that to them in the morning. And then at night, their main meal would consist usually of a combination of some what we call muscle meat pieces and some pureed vegetables, or alternatively you can use a product such as a BAF product, which is like a pre-made BAF, just standing for biologically appropriate raw food, a pre-made frozen all-in-one put-together product for you. Now in Australia we have, I work with a lady named Jenny Goldsby who produces the complete meal, and this is fantastic. It's all done for you. You essentially just defrost it and put it in the into the bowl and feed it. But if you're not doing that, you can just also simply put together some, a combination of meat and some vegetables. There are some simple guidelines to doing that. And that formula forms the basis of the diet. Now, in terms of cost, sometimes initially you're going to see a little bit more cost. The cost, in fact, will be a little bit higher initially to put together this raw diet. But what I always say to clients is that what we're looking at here is the long-term investment. It's not just so much about that short-term, what it costs you day to day, but what we're saving on here, Glenn, are thousands of dollars in vet bills, in unnecessary medication, surgeries, all these sorts of things. Once you get your dog on the right diet, you are going to be saving yourself a lot of money in the long term. My dogs are 8 and 7, and they just don't go to the vets. They don't get sick. So although I may put the money into their food, I'm not spending it in other ways where they may need thousands of dollars worth of medication, surgeries, interventions, testing, all these sorts of things, because they have these health issues that might be coming up. So I think that's the long term. It's a long term, the bigger picture sort of thing when you're looking at it. So, yeah.
I had a Newfie for, she was 13 and a half years. She lived to be 13 and a half years old and never had a medical problem, never had a health problem until the day she died, honestly. And I would also often ask the vet, what, especially when she got to be
and that's older, really old for a dog that size.
It is really old for a dog that size. And so, I would say, Tim, and this was before we really knew what raw diets could do for dogs' overall health. But I always fed her vegetable choppings. Whatever we were making for dinner, she would have the stuff that we didn't really want to eat. I'd cut up broccoli and radishes, and she would eat green tomatoes out of the garden before it just used to drive us crazy. She would pull radishes up out of the garden, and she would eat just the radish, but leave the leaves. It was pretty funny. But the vet had said at the time that it was probably because of the high vegetable content in her diet, she was basically getting these antioxidants from the time she was, 6 months old until the time she died. And that was probably the number one factor that contributed to her longevity. And she ultimately died of a heart problem, which was typical of the breed. But, I think about that all the time. And really what we're talking about is just eliminating all of this processing and junk and going down to, I guess raw and pure might be used
but doesn't
interchangeably.
vegetables go against what Linda was just saying with basically dogs that eat a meat diet?
Well, but that's just it. If it's just vegetables, it's one thing. If it's just meat, I don't know.
Linda, what would you say to that?
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, look, absolutely. The predominant diet needs to be based around meat and bone, but we also know that it's, in a real world, we can't be offering our dogs, a whole animal. It's not practical for most people to go and actually offer.
And it's gross. Let's admit, it's gross.
It's pretty icky. Although we would have plenty of access to animals in Australia in that way, we certainly don't want to be doing that. So the vegetable content, like Helena was saying, it's very high in antioxidants, and of course high in chlorophyll and fiber and other things that trace nutrients that dogs need that they may not get from meat and bones. So a small portion of that diet becomes what we call, it's the carbohydrate section, but it's not the carbohydrate portion, but it's not carbohydrates in the sense of grains and those sorts of carbohydrates. We're talking plant matter, which is,
right.
An important part. So really I look at plant matter as being the little bit that the dog can't get from the meat and bone. It just sort of fills in all those nutritional cracks and gaps and yeah, absolutely. And making, as long as those vegetables are prepared well, as long as they're pureed down, or, one of the best things that you can do is if you're the sort of person who loves to make a juice for yourself, with a lovely veggie juice, all that beautiful vegetable pulp that you get from your juice, you can actually be giving some of that to your dog. That's an ideal thing to add in with their meat and their bones. So, yeah, a very important part of the diet, a small part but important part.
Well, Linda, Denise, who's our guest wrangler here, who actually booked you, I think, had a question. She wanted to know, I'd love to hear her thoughts on addressing allergies in dogs, particularly skin allergies. And I know a lot of our listeners have talked about that on our Facebook pages at times. What predominantly causes the skin allergies? And is there one predominant thing? I know there's a lot of things that can, but what do you see most
fleas.
often? Yeah, besides fleas. Let's throw fleas out the window here. Literally, we want to do that anyway. So,
I know that flea, because you really have to get rid of the fleas before you can get rid of the dog's reaction to them. Right. But, aside from fleas.
Yeah, look, and what you have to remember with an allergy is that it could be an allergy to fleas. It could be what we call a contact allergy. So that's an allergy to something that the dog actually comes in contact with, like the grass or something like that, or an airborne allergy. It really doesn't matter. Ultimately, what we need to do when we're dealing with an allergy that presents on the skin is look within. So if we have a look at what's going on inside the dog's digestive system and how that's influencing the entire system, that's where that's the clue. So I'm very big on treating what's called gut immunity. So we know that about 80% of our dog's immune system actually is in that gut tissue, actually it's in the small intestine, and essentially that governs the overall immune response. So if your dog's gut is a little bit out of balance, there's a good chance that there's going to be a potential to develop an allergy that appears to be on the skin, and this is because of this influence of the digestive system over that immune response. Now, what will throw out balance? It'll be things like the wrong type of diet, so processed foods, which we've just touched on. A lot of vaccinations will do it because that messes around with the immune system. A lot of chemical products, so the chemical flea, tick and worming products that your listeners might be using monthly, or I'm not sure how they use them in the States, but over here we use them monthly. It could be stress, if your dog's very stressed, or it could be just general medications, antibiotics, steroids, which are commonly prescribed for these sorts of problems, unfortunately. So all of these things damage the gut. Now, once the gut gets damaged, we can see a problem that develops called leaky gut syndrome, and don't have time to go into that here, but essentially what that means is that it can really start to set up a pattern of allergies and toxicity in the system. So what started out as a gut problem now becomes a skin problem, an allergy problem. So once we start to work with the gut and we start to heal the gut, which is always my first place of my starting point with treatment with these problems, we start to see a lessening of these symptoms and in some cases a complete resolution. With other dogs, it's more a management thing depending on how bad they are. But yeah, it's really, it really does come back to what is going on in the gut, and that is really paramount in that situation. Really, any situation with chronic health to get on top of it is gut health. So, yeah.
So when back in my day when I was working with dogs, the first thing we did with anything that had to do with inflammation and gut health is you stop everything, you remove everything, and then slowly introduce stuff back into the dog's diet. And we always started with some kind of rice and chicken. Is that still sort of the standard operating procedure when you're trying to deal with these things?
Certainly from a veterinary perspective, I know they still work around elimination diets. I probably come at it a little bit differently, Helena. I do work to do detoxification regimes, which involve the gut and other parts of the body. But what I tend to do is because the majority of dogs I see are coming to me from a processed diet. So the first thing that I do is I will put them onto a raw diet, but depending on their symptoms, I will usually pick just one protein. So, for example, it might be, we tend to use goat a lot, and I talked about the complete meal before, so I tend to put them onto this complete meal that is usually goat, or it might be kangaroo. These are usually proteins that are a little bit what we call novel proteins, so they're ones that the dog may never have come in contact with before. And I use bone broth a lot. I find that extremely helpful with this whole process of healing the gut. But yes, putting them down to just one protein and essentially cleaning up the diet and streamlining it. I'm not a big fan of doing the elimination diets, although, as I said, I know most vets will tend to do that. I tend to work a little bit differently, and I find that I do get the results, because often when we talk about allergies, a true food allergy is not necessarily that common in dogs, but what we are seeing, as I said before, with these gut issues is that when the dog is carrying a lot of toxic load, this will tend to mimic an allergy state. So what you're thinking is an allergy may not be a true allergy. It may be more an intolerance to something that's coming into the dog's body. And so once we clean that gut up, we balance things out, we detox the dog, many of these, as I said, so-called allergy symptoms do settle and resolve, or absolutely go down to a minimum level. So
how long does it usually take to reverse that? You know, when you start them on your diet, how long before you know that it's working?
Yeah, look, I always give clients a framework of 3 months. That's my acute phase of treatment. Sometimes I see results really quickly within a matter of a couple of weeks or something. We're seeing some, like I did recently with a dog. Lady I saw with a dog with a skin rash, and put her on a regime, and within 2 weeks the skin had virtually healed itself. But generally 3 months, and it can be for some dogs, particularly these dogs that have been chronically supposedly allergic to everything in their life for many years, and they've had lots of medication interventions and things like that. This could be 6 to 12 months to get a complete resolution, or a complete to get a really stable pattern. But 3 months is a really good block of time for me to be able to ascertain where the dog's at, what we need to work with at that point at the end of the 3 months time, if anything. And then I move them onto a maintenance regime, which essentially is that, just to maintain where they're at. And then we can move on from there. But yeah, look, the 3 months is a good framework for most of these sorts of things.
Where can people go? What would you recommend if they were to find a resource, a book, or a website that you think is pretty accurate about all of this? What would you tell them?
Yeah, look, there's so much information out there on the internet that can be really confusing. You know, one of the best resources I've found, and not an Australian-based one, of course, but I think they're based in Canada, is Dogs Naturally magazine, and they are a really great source of information on, and they're always also on the cutting edge of a lot of these sorts of things. So they bring the latest information that's available on anything holistic, and you can subscribe to them online, of course, and you also can subscribe to a hard copy of their magazine, which is fantastic. And I always get some great information from them, because being in Australia, unfortunately, we're a little behind the times in these things. We're not quite, it's very, very niche market in Australia, holistic medicine for dogs. So I'm, sort of one of the only ones in Australia doing this sort of work. So it's, I do have to look outside of my country to get information, and Dogs Naturally magazines are always a great source. And of course, people can always come and have a look at my website and talk to me about what I do, which is caninevitality.com.au, and that obviously I can always help them from that perspective. They can email me and find out some more information about what I do as well.
Thank you, Linda. We appreciate you getting up early and joining us today.
It was a pleasure.
No worries at all. I appreciate your time.
Road to the Horse is right around the corner, and the Horse Radio Network is proud to once again be the premier radio network covering the event with Horseware as our title sponsor. On March 23rd to March 26th, 4 of the finest female trainers in the world will gather in the world's leading colt starting competition. With the help of my amazing, knowledgeable co-host Tara Carter, we will bring you all the action from ringside at the Kentucky Horse Park. Listen live or recorded to Horses in the Morning on Friday the 23rd and Saturday the 24th at 9 a.m. And then, for the second time, we will be bringing you the only free coverage of the finals on Sunday the 25th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The best way to listen is on the Horse Radio Network app. Just go to iOS or Android app stores and search Horse Radio Network, or visit horseradionetwork.com. Thanks to all our terrific sponsors for making this happen: Horseware, Cashel Products, Cavallo Boots, Horse Lovers, and Enjoy Yums. Visit roadtothehorse.com to learn more. Well, this is normally the spot we would put the Tack and Habit segment, brought to you by horselovers.com. But the products are now just being assigned out to the auditors for this year, and you still have a chance. If you haven't become an auditor and you want to have a chance at getting one of these products for free and reviewing it here on the show and hanging out with Helene and I, which should be your biggest reward, then you can just sign up to be an auditor. Head over to stablescoop.com. Click on the auditor banner in the middle of the page, and for as little as $1 a month, you too can become an auditor. I think we've had what seems like 20 new auditors in the last 2 weeks.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, come in.
I like the new auditors.
Yeah, and I should explain too, Helena will thank you for this too. What happens is half of that money that we get every month goes back and gets divided amongst the hosts of the Horse Radio Network owned shows, which is like Helena. So Helena's been actually seeing a raise in her paycheck every month, and that's because of you guys. You guys are directly helping support the host. They do not make a lot of money doing this.
Not basically enough for a bale of hay.
For that matter, we don't make a lot of money doing this. Nobody makes a lot of money doing podcasting. So it really is a help, and I know that the hosts truly appreciate it, and that includes Jamie and Reese and Philip and Wendy. They all appreciate your support.
You know what? It does cover, it covers just enough to keep us coming back. Like,
yeah.
If so many times I've said I need to go back to the corporate world, and my husband is like, oh, no, you don't. You just sit right down in front of that microphone and get yourself some more auditors.
But, it is important, and we value the auditors, and they have their own room, and it's a lot of fun, and they get little perks like this. And we're doing a fun thing. I don't know if you noticed, Alina, this time, to sign out the products, instead of me just posting the auditor room and the first one to respond gets it. I'm doing trivia nights where I come on Facebook Live and hang out with the auditors doing trivia, and then they have to answer the trivia question to get the review product. And it's been a whole lot of fun. I've been hanging out with like 50 auditors a couple of nights, and we're going to do more of those. So you still have a chance to get in. We haven't assigned out all the products yet. So definitely, sign up to be an auditor if you want to be part of that cool community there. Well, that's it for this week. You can find all of our show notes and all the past episodes, all 4,000 of them, at stablescoop.com. Seems that way sometimes.
Yeah.
It's only been 448, but 9
It must
years.
be like 4,000 minutes.
Yeah,
4,000
I bet you it's a lot more than that even. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We'll be back again next week. And also don't forget that we have Road to the Horse coverage coming up. As it said in the commercial, we're going to be doing on the Horses in the Morning feed, we'll be doing 6 hours of live Road to the Horse coverage on starting the 24th of this month. I'll be at the Kentucky Horse Park again in my little glass cube. I'm so excited, Helena. I got Tara Carter coming on, who's a wife of one of the past competitors. Mary was busy this year, Mary Kitzmiller, and she's coming on, and she's been a pen wrangler. She trains ranch horses, and she's super sweet and has the best Southern accent. So it's going to be a whole lot of fun doing it this year, and we hope that you join us for the coverage there. And Helena can be found at?
You can find me all over the place. No, actually, you can find me. Go to that newportshow.com. That's where I spend whatever time I'm not spending with
And
horse
she
radio.
just had her first anniversary show.
We did. Yep. That Newport show is 1 year old. In fact, I'm working on episode 53 right now.
That
So
is
we've got a
hard
lot
to
of fun things
believe.
going on there. I know.
Because I remember it was like yesterday. You said, I'm going to start this show about Newport. It's like yesterday.
Yeah. Well, no, I believe it was, Helena, you need to start a show.
Yeah, okay.
You
Might
need
have
to
been
do
my
your
fault.
own podcast. This was after Podfest. I'm like, Glenn, this stuff is pretty cool. And he was like, you need to just do your own show.
Well,
Yeah.
you'd been doing it with me for so long. You needed to get away from me for a little bit. That was
And
perfect. And then
That
hang
did
out with Buck.
and really starting my own show didn't give me any more distance from you.
No, that's true.
It just gave me more reasons to call you and pester you.
But you
at
got
all
to hang out
hours.
with Buck every week.
I do get to hang
Yeah.
out with Buck. It's a lot of fun. Let me tell you, the research
How is
that
it
we
doing
do
it
for
with
the show,
your bow?
it's wonderful. It really, and because we talk a lot about relationships on our show.
Yeah, you do.
I mean,
you guys do.
that's half of it. Half of it applies to anybody in the world because it's all about, how to balance life and love and relationships and family. And then the other half is specific to Newport. So, if Buck and I get into a fight and we're going to be, because we do sometimes, we have these little disagreements, and then we're supposed to record that day or something. I'm like, I don't want to record with him right now. How am I supposed to bring the juice of all this rosy love? But what happens is, we're like, listen, we need to sit down and really figure out how we're going to work through this little issue. And because we have a show to record, and this show is about two people who have worked very, very hard at having a healthy love relationship. So let's put our big girl pants on and figure out what we need to do.
And drinking and
and-
eating their way through Newport.
The drinking helps, especially when we have one of those little disagreements. But it's definitely inspiration. Having to get in front of the microphone is definite inspiration for making sure we work through our problems. It's put your money where your mouth is.
I'm so lucky. I have like 20, what is it now? 25 people. I have 25 women in my life that I love to hang out with every once in a while. And then I'm done. It's like the perfect relationship like you and I have.
Dude,
We hang out for
you need
2
to cut
hours
that
a
whole
week.
thing out.
We hang out for 2 hours a week. It's the perfect friendship, right? 2 hours a week. We get all caught up and then we're good till next week. It's perfect.
I got nothing. You just shut me down right there. I have about 25 women friends. Spend a little bit of time with them, then we're done.
Then we're
we
done,
get
that's
together
right.
next week. I believe there has to be some new kind of flag in iTunes for that content.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Happy scooping.